Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we're saying goodbye to the Jutland, finally moving on from the Jutland, and wanted to show off one last look at it before I finally do so. As you can see, we are playing on Sea of Fortune, playing Domination, and yeah, it's no surprise, we're actually bottom tier, but fortunately, or unfortunately in this case, there's actually no tier 8s. Almost every other ship is going to be tier 10 except for the DDs, a couple of the DDs, and a couple of the battleships. So mostly a tier 10 fight. And let's actually talk about the Jutland. So starting off, the Jutland has a health pool of 18,400. Not really that impressive. To be all considering, it's not a very large health pool. I believe it's slightly worse than the Fletcher. It's been a little while since I played the Fletcher. Do have to be considerate of your health pool, but one nice thing about the Jutland compared to, say, the Fletcher is the fact she does in fact have a heal. The heal is extremely beneficial, and with Superintendent and Premium Consumables, you get 3 charges of the heal. So definitely kind of makes up for it as long as you get the opportunity to actually use it. So health pools, it's alright. It's not super amazing. Guns, let's actually talk about the guns. So the Jutland is where you get the semi-armor piercing rounds that the British cruisers use, and they're strong. They really are. They do have a little bit of lead time, so you do have to take in consideration, but honestly they are very strong. And almost immediately Z-52 pops up and we are being radared, but since we're radared, we're being seen, might as well open up and do fairly decent damage against the Z-52 for the time being. But as normal, armor piercing rounds have a slight issue, and that comes down to the fact at a target that is bow on, it is not going to do any damage. You're going to get a lot of ricochets, and that's a huge major concern. But something to keep in mind is the fact that the HE shells aren't particularly amazing either. That is due to the fact that the Jutland runs 113s, and those are very small shells, and they generally will break more than anything else whenever even a DD, when facing off against a DD, you're going to get shells broken. And here's a really good demonstration. Against the Z-52, you have to show, or you have to lead quite a bit just to ensure your shells arrive on target. Now, Kitagaze is being a slight pester, being over there, but not much we can do at the moment. So we're just gonna kind of let him be. We haven't really captured anything, and that's gonna be something we really need to consider about doing. Now, the Jutland, as you can see, actually has a hydro, and I think I actually recently added the special hydro that you can get for your destroyers, so you get an additional length of time. Hydro is not particularly amazing by any standard. It's not a German hydro. It only has a range of 3 kilometers, but if it means that you can spot enemy torpedoes or even pushing in towards a smoke, 3 kilometers is so much better. So major issue for the Jutland, and of course we're being instantly, I believe, hydroed. Might be the Z-52. The major issue is when firing AP, a DD can essentially go bow in, and you have very difficult actually dealing damage and getting a lot of ricochets. Now, you could very much so go for IFHE. And I'm really iffy on the fact of going for IFHE, just to the fact that it takes another 4 points, that it could go for something else, but it does mean you'll actually do penetration damage against destroyers. Now, one little side note as we get our first kill of the game, the gun turrets on the Jutland tend to be very fragile. Like, they're made of eggshells because they tend to break quite often. That is severely aggravating, especially when facing off against like a Kitagaze, for example. Your gun turrets tend to get damaged quite readily, even if you have the upgrade on it. So be weary of that. Now, obviously, the gun turrets do turn 360 degrees. The Jutland on this that I'm taking out, I actually don't have the range upgrade. I really don't find the range that beneficial. Now, thing I could technically, I guess, argue for not having IFHE is your fire chance is actually really good on the Jutland. I think with flags, it gets up to 8.5, almost 9% fire chance, and they are very fast for loading gun. I believe it gets down to about 2 seconds, so very, very fast on that. Now, moving on to the torpedoes. Torpedoes are, they're standard. They're not particularly amazing. They do pretty decent damage. They only have a 10-kilometer range. They do about, I believe, about 62 knots if memory serves me. And of course, you can fire the single fire. So that is really the only thing going for it. But once again, the Jutland is more of a gunboat DD than a torp boat, because the reload on the torpedoes, at times it can feel a little bit slow. It's not the slowest in the game. But once again, your torpedoes, if you fire a single fire, as I did, hoping to actually get this Musashi, if the first set miss, more than likely the rest will miss as well. So unfortunately, we're not going to get any torpedoes there. And fortunately for us, that Musashi was actually not detected, but he was so willing to actually open up and be spotted by us. But at the moment, our team, I mean, it's fairly even, but I don't really have a lot of support. And this is one other thing you really got to keep in mind. Keep watch of your smoke. I made a very major mistake. Barely got that capture. But I should have held my fire, because this can happen. Now, this is going to be fixed here in the future to where British AP, or not British, Battleship AP won't do that again. It's going to reduce it, I think, down to either an eighth or a tenth of the normal damage. So very much needed, because for the most part I've lost the majority of my health and I only have one more heal. So not a very good position, especially considering the fact that there's still 3 other destroyers around, plus the Kitakaze, which IGN boats are quite devastating. So torpedoes are on their way, once again firing single fire. One other kind of small thing is, keep in mind, if you don't fire all of your torpedoes at a time, they won't start reloading until you fire them all. So if you need to, press, I believe it is F, to reload your torpedoes. So torpedoes are on the way towards Musashi. Hopefully we can actually get him. Musashi's pushing in because, well, I mean, our team's kind of sitting back. We have a Worcester, gunboating in the open, Musashi, and a Kurfürst. Do get a torpedo hit, but no flooding. And once again, the HE, yes, as you can see, we have 21 shells broken. I would very much agree that getting IFHE would be probably a lot more beneficial. I still haven't made up my mind. I will probably get IFHE. But the fire chance is super decent. That's second fire on the Musashi, so he's going to burn hopefully for a little bit longer. And moving on to AA. AA is not overly impressive. You can at least shoot some planes down. You have a 3.5 kilometer range and a 54. Once again, really messing up, not keeping track of my own smoke screen. Really got to be careful on that. So, very low in health. Kitakaze is being a bother. Really relying on losing detect. And there we go. Just lost our detect. And this actually saves me. Montana fired and probably would have lapped me right there. But fortunately that actually did save me. So it was, you know, all skill, no luck. Exactly, that's it. Moving on to her maneuverability. Major complaint with the Jutland is she is slow. Very slow. Without speed flag, she can barely get up to 35 knots. She's the slowest DD at tier 9. She doesn't have a engine boost, but of course she has that very nice acceleration that all British DDs have and cruisers. So I guess that's something going for her, but she is very terribly slow, so do not rely on her to be speedy. Concealment is not bad. Actually, at tier 9, 5.7 is actually fairly decent. Against, say, other British DDs, you're obviously going to get spotted by the lightning, but for the most part, 5.7 is not that terrible, actually. And this is actually where the single fire torpedoes actually come really nice into play, because as you can see, the Jean Bart is actually pushing towards that island, and had I fire a spread, more than likely some of my torpedoes would have actually hit the island, and in this instance, our torpedoes are actually going to do a really nice job. Now, your AP against broadside battleships is quite devastating. You do have to aim for the superstructure. That is where you're going to get most of your damage. But this Jean Bart is, well, he's just rushing in and right into my line of torpedoes. And that is good night, Jean Bart. And with that, we can get a little bit of revenge on this Kitakaze that's been quite a bothersome. Now, your AP, even against IGN DDs, not bad. Almost did 3,000 points of damage right there. Kitakaze was gunboating in the open, and now he's just reaping the just desserts. More than likely, Kitakaze has dropped torpedoes, so good time to disappear. So overall, thoughts on the Jutland? It's not bad. No, it's a fairly strong ship. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Kitakaze. I think I enjoy the Kitakaze even a little bit more than the Jutland. And I think getting IFHE, good lord, I can speak apparently, is not a bad idea. It's actually a really good idea to get IFHE, because you are going to struggle with your HE shells, especially when a target goes bow in. But overall, not too bad. One other small thing that you do have to keep in mind is the fact that since she has that very quick acceleration, and say for example if I needed to start up getting around this island, you don't want to go full speed, because she will just take straight off and get up to speed, and more than likely you actually run into the island. At the moment, team is doing pretty well. I mean, very well actually, because we are probably going to win. All that's left is a Conqueror and a Montana. Montana is starting to push in towards us. Do need to probably start moving, because do not want to be blapped by Montana. But obviously it is a British DD and it does have the smoke. So torpedoes probably just got spotted there. Conqueror is still pushing forward. Actually get a hit on the Montana, cause the flooding. He does rep it. So we're going to go ahead slow up. But our torpedoes are still looking pretty nice against that Conqueror. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5 torpedoes against the Conqueror. Very, very nice. He is flooding. Looks like he does rep his flooding, which will possibly mean he's gonna hit the new ship button. Let's see if we can actually finish him off. But almost any moment now, the enemy team is going to lose this. Montana's getting really seriously close. Probably needs to start moving. And firing in smoke, it's 2.5 kilometers, so just keep that in mind whenever using it. But that's the end of this battle. Not bad. So as you can see, we earned a victory. Brought home 486,966 silver, 13,814 XP. I've been really trying to push my way through the Jutland, just trying to get the daring. 168,369 points of damage. A lot of it, I believe, came from the Conqueror and that Jean Bart. Targets with our shells, 297, 11 torpedoes. Once again, I know I just said that the Jutland is not a torpedo boat, but your torpedoes can actually do fairly decent damage. We did manage 3 kills, 2 fires, 10 floodings, 1 captured base, and 1 spotted. We were top of the team with a base XP of 2,537. As I did mention, most of our damage came from the Conqueror and the Jean Bart, with a little mixture in from the Musashi and the Z-52. Now, the most major difference between the British DDs and the and the German DDs, for that matter, is the fact that their AP is German AP, and they'll bounce even at the most slightest of angles. The British DDs have much better penetration and will actually do a better job dealing damage at a more angled target. So that is the most major difference between the two APs. Moving on, High Explosive did 0 damage even though we fired 212 shots. and only landed 149. So that right there should show that HE's not particularly great. AP did 41,040, but most of our damage came from the torpedoes with a little bit of fire and a little bit of flooding. Overall, not a bad game. It was fairly interesting, especially being left alone on the seaside for a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the port and take a look at the stats. See you guys there. Alright everyone, welcome back to the port. And as I said, the Jutland is actually a decent DD. It has its strong points and it has its weaknesses, like many good ships should have. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stats. Survivability, 18,400. Z46, which is actually my favorite ship, has 19,900. Once again, health pool's not particularly amazing. Is one of the lowest as far as compared to any of the other tier 9 DDs, but at least it has a heal, so that kind of makes up for it. Armor is nothing too extravagant, 19mm, very similar to a lot of tier 9s. Moving on to the main guns, you have 3 dual 113mm. Once again, this is the main issue with the HE, is the fact that they're small caliber and the shells tend to break on pretty much most armor in its tier and below and above. So you are going to struggle doing damage with your HE because of the 113mm. They have a good reload, 2.8 seconds. Turn time on the guns is 10.3 seconds, which is not too bad. When your HE can actually do damage, it has a maximum HE damage of 1,700 with a 8.5% fire chance. The AP has a max AP damage of 2,100. Pretty much, if you're not running IFHE, you're going to be firing a lot of AP, as you saw me doing. AP is very strong, especially against other destroyers. Firing range on the Jutland, I do not have the rain mod. It can actually get the range up to, I believe, 12.2 kilometers. Let me actually look, 12.5 kilometers. But for the most part, the arcing on the shells is quite lousy at the range. More than likely, the only thing you're really going to be shooting is going to be battleships. And even then, you might have a slight issue, especially if they're a fast battleship. AP velocity and HE velocity, 746 meters per second. Very, very arcing shells. Even against destroyers at a semi-decent range, you're still going to have to lead a little bit more than normal. So do keep that in mind whenever playing the ship. Moving on to Torpedo Defense, you have 2 quintuple 533mm. They have a load time of 120 seconds, so about 2 minutes. Not very impressive. Decent damage though, 15,533. Once again, you can fire them individually, which can be very beneficial, but at the exact same time, you can miss your shots. So do try to make the best judgment whenever playing and firing those torpedoes. 10-kilometer range, and they have a detect of 1.3 kilometer with a 62 knot speed. Moving on to AA Defense. Not really that impressive, to be perfectly honest. You have 3 single 40mm. Average damage is 31 with a 3.5 kilometer range. Then you have 2 dual 40mm. Average damage is 45 with a 3.5 kilometer range. And then your main guns operate as additional AA. Average damage is 54 with a 5 kilometer range. You are going to lose your guns. They are simply not that impressive, so do not rely on them and try to rely on any friendlies with good AA around you. Moving on to maneuverability. This is probably what I would consider the worst thing about the Jutland is her speed, 34 knots. I even bloated the rate a little bit in the video. 34 knots, slow, very slow. Has no speed boost, nothing to compensate. Akazuki can even outspeed it with a speed boost. Only thing beneficial is the fact that you have that British acceleration, so you can get out of a standstill very quickly. Very nice thing about it. The other nice thing about it is because of the fact that you do have the acceleration, you can get the rudder shift time module on this, and that's very, very nice to have. Turning circle radius is 610 meters. Not bad at tier 9. Rudder shift time is a nice 3.4. Nothing compared to a Fletcher, but still semi-decent all the same. Moving on, Concealment, 5.7. Very nice at tier 9, considering most are either 5.8 and a little bit above. Yugamo, of course, is always going to outspot you, but that's a IGN destroyer for you. Detectability range by air is 3.3, and while firing in smoke is 2.5 kilometers. Moving on to the ship itself, I went for obviously the B hull upgrade, reduces rudder shift time, but also increases your health pool. I didn't go for the range mod because honestly you're gonna struggle at firing at that much longer range, and it's easier to escape ships if you have a smaller range and you've been shooting. And once again, the Jutland is not a particularly fast destroyer, so you are going to struggle trying to outrun any fast cruisers, especially at tier 9 and 10. Moving on to the consumables, as per normal for the British CDs, it does have 7 charges of the very short time smoke screen. It does have the hydro. This has 180 seconds on it with a 3-kilometer range. You can use this when in smoke screen, but only if a destroyer gets within 500 kilometers of your, gets within 3 kilometers, but you're able to shoot it without being detected until 2.5 kilometers. So you have about 500 meters to play with. Health, Repair Party 2. This will heal 184 points of health per second. Not overly impressive, but it is very nice to have. Moving on to my upgrades. You want to get main arms mod 1. The guns tend to get knocked out quite often. This will try to at least alleviate some of the headache. On the propulsion mod 1, I would almost actually go for the hydroacoustic search. I just think having that additional length of time, that's my personal opinion, can prove beneficial. Aiming system over AA guns, my personal opinion, your AA guns are not overly impressive and you're not going to be shooting down a lot of planes. As I made mention earlier, steering gears mod 2 because you don't have the ability to get the speed, the acceleration module. Concealment, of course, and last but not least, get main battery modification 3 just for that reload rate on your guns. Moving on to the captain. Now this might be a little controversial because I still don't know if I want to go with IFHE. Starting off, priority target, personal opinion, I enjoy it. Last stand, adrenaline rush, superintendent, and concealment expert. Now IFHE is and will be very beneficial, especially dealing with other destroyers and bow N. Does 30% more damage for your shells, reduces your fire chance by 3%. So do keep in, or sorry, 1%. So do keep in mind that it will prove beneficial. Now, I did go for basics fire and training, and I'm really debating whether or not I want to keep this. This will obviously reduce your reload time by 10%. Makes your guns fire just that teens a bit faster, which can prove beneficial in the long run. But you could easily switch it out, go for survivability expert, get additional health. You could go for any of the basic survivability, the high alert. You can go for jacks of all trade. You could go for demolition expert, get that extra fire chance. Basic fire training, I might switch out in the future. We'll see. But anyways, this is going to be it for this quick look at the Jutland. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Sai Chen.